Have you ever wondered what the wildest places on Earth truly look like when nature is left completely in control? Beyond familiar destinations, vast regions remain untouched, where mountains rise in isolation, forests stretch without end, and oceans collide with land in powerful and unpredictable ways. In these environments, extreme climates, shifting landscapes, and untamed ecosystems create conditions that are both breathtaking and unforgiving. Each location reflects millions of years of geological change, where raw natural forces continue to shape the planet in real time. Join us as we explore the wildest places on Earth, where beauty and danger exist side by side in landscapes few will ever truly experience. Fitz Roy, Argentina, Chile. The uncrowned king of Patagonia rises with sharp stone peaks, like shark teeth tearing proudly through the sky. Though it stands only about 11,171 feet high, far lower than Everest, this mountain still frightens climbers more because of its steep, smooth granite walls and extreme weather, and in some years, no one reaches the summit. The whole massif is made of granite spires as sharp as shark teeth, stabbing straight upward, with continuous vertical walls stretching more than 3,937 feet, and creating an overwhelming presence for anyone below. At sunrise, the rock faces reflect the sunlight and burn in deep red, standing in fierce contrast to white snow and cold blue water, making Fitz Roy both breathtakingly beautiful and deeply challenging. From cracks high in the rock, meltwater from eternal ice falls like the tears of a giant, gathering into stunning turquoise lakes below the mountain. Local people called it Chowten, meaning the smoking mountain, because the summit is often wrapped in white cloud bands that look like smoke rising from a volcano. Kangchenjunga, Nepal/India. Rising like a giant fortress of snow and ice at about 28,169 feet. This is the world's third highest mountain, but what makes it even more frightening is that it is not a single summit, but a huge X-shaped massif with 5 major peaks. The enormous weight of snow, combined with steep mountain walls, turns the whole massif into a field of natural bombs where huge avalanches can rush down at hundreds of miles per hour and wipe out everything in their path. Along its cliffs hang countless giant seracs like frozen blades, while long white cloud banners often stream from the top, showing that violent winds are tearing across the snow surface. Catching the first light of dawn and glowing pink gold at sunset, this dazzling beauty stands in sharp contrast to the cruelty of a mountain that has become a machine of death. In contrast to Everest becoming safer with modern technology, the death rate here has at times risen to about 22%, leaving Kangchenjunga feared as one of the most ruthless killers in mountaineering today. Local people see it as a sacred home of the gods, so since 1955, climbers have kept a special promise by stopping a few feet below the highest point instead of stepping onto the true summit. Cave of Swallows, Mexico. Imagine standing before a giant black hole in the rainforest, where an entire skyscraper could be swallowed by the deep darkness of the cave. At midday, sunlight shines straight into the opening, cuts through thin mist, and creates glowing beams that blur the line between the ground above and the underground world below. Since the 1970s, this place has attracted thrill seekers because they get about 12 seconds of free fall inside the abyss before opening their parachutes. Strangely, the opening is only about 160 feet wide, but the cave expands to about 994 feet at the bottom, like a giant bottle buried under the earth. Although its name mentions swallows, its most famous residents are swifts, which spiral into the sky each morning and dive back into the deep pit like living arrows each evening. Fly Geyser, United States. Unlike wonders shaped over millions of years, Fly Geyser rose in the desert like a strange geothermal creature, born from a human drilling mistake in 1964. From its permanently open core, water at 200 degrees Fahrenheit keeps shooting 5 feet into the air day and night, steady like the breathing of the earth below. Minerals in the water slowly build layer after layer, allowing the tower to grow a few inches every year, while forming around 40 colorful stepped pools around it. Red, green, and yellow colors spread across the twisted surface of the tower, making it stand out like a living stain in the flat and empty desert. Standing before this endless boiling water machine, people quickly feel that nature's beauty can also be something far beyond human control. Nanga Parbat, Pakistan. Rising like a bare and silent giant at the western edge of the Himalayas, Nanga Parbat stands about 26,660 feet high, making it the world's 9th highest mountain, and for a long time, it has been haunted by the name Killer Mountain. The landscape here feels unreal and overwhelming because the mountain rises almost suddenly from dry land below and then, over a short distance, shoots upward into a kingdom of permanent ice and snowstorms. Its most terrifying feature is the south face, which climbs about 15,092 feet from the base to the summit, forming a gigantic wall of rock and ice that is considered one of the most overpowering vertical faces on Earth. Before it was first climbed in 1953, this mountain had already taken the lives of 31 explorers, giving it one of the most brutal death histories among all peaks above 8,000 meters. The snowstorms here were so savage that humanity had to wait more than 60 more years before the summit was reached again in the freezing winter of 2016. What makes Nanga Parbat even more extraordinary is that its first ascent was linked to an almost unbelievable solo achievement when the climber completed the final section without using bottled oxygen. K2, Pakistan-China border. Rising like a sharp pyramid of rock and ice, stabbing into the sky at about 28,251 feet, this mountain is the second highest on Earth. Yet it also stands as one of the coldest symbols of brutality in mountaineering. Its death rate was once so terrifying that about 1 out of every 4 climbers who reached the summit never returned, which is why many have long seen it as even harsher and harder than Everest. Unlike many peaks with easier approach slopes, every route upward is brutally steep, forcing climbers to master the highest level of mountain skill. Around the summit, giant lenticular clouds often appear like warning signs of violent winds that can exceed 124 miles per hour, strong enough to throw a human body off the mountain. Near the top, the most feared section is a narrow and steep ice gully lying directly below a massive hanging serac, where tens of thousands of tons of snow and ice can collapse at any moment. It was so savage that only in 2021 did K2 become the last mountain above 8,000 meters ever climbed in winter, closing one of the harshest challenges on Earth. Aoraki/Mount Cook, New Zealand. Aoraki/ it is not only the highest peak in New Zealand, but like a colossal blade of rock and ice piercing the clouds, ruling the whole sky with a beauty that feels both sacred and violent. Rising to about 12,218 feet, it stands in a frozen world where more than 1/3 of the surrounding mountain region is covered by glaciers hundreds of feet thick. Because it lies near 40 degrees south latitude, this mountain is often hit by storms with winds exceeding 124 miles per hour, strong enough to crush any attempt at conquest in moments. Because the weather can shift with terrifying speed, ice can crack through the night like cannon fire, and danger is always close. It has become the deadliest mountain in New Zealand. Annapurna I, Nepal. Set in the mighty Himalayas, Annapurna I rises to about 26,545 feet, making it the world's 10th highest mountain, yet it is known as one of the deadliest peaks on Earth, with a death rate that once reached about 32%. Strangely, this infamous mountain also became the first 8,000er ever climbed by humans in 1950, beginning a brutal history of mountaineering that pushed human survival to its absolute limit. Its greatest threat comes not only from altitude or thin air, but from a deeply unstable ice structure where massive avalanches can crash down at any moment like a deadly gamble. Entering this frozen world has often been compared to a cruel game of Russian roulette, where even the finest survival skills can suddenly become meaningless. Unlike sharp peaks that stab into the sky, Annapurna I spreads out as a huge mountain mass, and its south face rises nearly 9,843 feet in a sheer wall of rock and ice, widely seen as one of the most terrifying climbing faces on Earth. in complete contrast to its Sanskrit name, often understood as the goddess of the harvests. This mountain stands as a severe reminder of how small human life is before the force of nature. Sima de las Cotorras, Mexico. In the green forest, a giant skylight opens deep into the ground, where thousands of parakeets circle up from the bottom of the sinkhole into the sky every morning. This giant cylindrical sinkhole is about 460 feet deep and 525 feet wide, hiding a tropical forest ecosystem with ancient trees about 65 feet tall growing in isolation at the bottom. Beyond nature, the vertical rock walls also preserve more than 40 ancient paintings about 10,000 years old, with mysterious handprints from prehistoric tribes. Strangely, these artworks sit up to 70 feet high on smooth rock walls, challenging scientists to explain how ancient people could reach them. When sunset falls, a mysterious silence covers the space, turning this busy funnel into a quiet stop in the flow of time. The Great Australian Bight is a massive geological tear of the Australian continent, where cliffs over 200 feet tall fall straight into the ocean. The region formed about 100 million years ago, when Australia split from Antarctica, leaving a fractured edge shaped by wind and water. Waves from the Southern Ocean can rise above 50 feet, smashing the cliffs and sending white columns of water into the air. Each year, over 20,000 whales migrate through these waters, turning it into a natural highway for the giants of the sea. Sunlight passing through salt mist creates a silver-blue glow, making the ocean change color throughout the day. The Great Australian Bight is not for relaxation, but the edge of the world itself, where land, wind, and sea merge into an ancient living form. Fagradalsfjall volcano, Iceland. On a cold, grey plain near the Arctic, Fagradalsfjall opens like a giant crack of fire, staining the night with burning orange light. After sleeping for more than 800 years, this volcano woke up in 2021 and became a tourist volcano because it erupts through cracks, creating far less destructive ash than many other volcanoes. The lava here rises from about 9 miles deep, reaching about 2,192 degrees Fahrenheit, then pours out through a crack more than 1,640 feet long, instead of exploding from a tall summit. The greatest danger is not only fire, but also invisible sulfur dioxide gas that can settle in low areas and turn the air into a silent trap for people nearby. Fagradalsfjall volcano makes people freeze before a chilling paradox, because Earth's rawest destruction can sometimes carry its most hypnotic beauty. Great Blue Hole, Belize. From above, it appears like a perfect black opening in the pale blue sea, about 1,043 feet wide and 407 feet deep below the ocean's surface. Its size is large enough to swallow 2 Boeing 747 planes, but the more frightening truth lies in the almost lifeless darkness below. After about 295 feet deep, oxygen disappears completely, turning the deepest part into a dead water chamber for most sea creatures. At around 98 feet deep, stalactites up to 39 feet long hang silently underwater, proving this place was once a dry limestone cave before the sea swallowed it. The Great Blue Hole reminds us that beneath calm and clear blue water, the ocean can still hide a dark doorway leading straight into Earth's deep history. Dhaulagiri, Nepal. Once believed to be the highest mountain on Earth for about 3 decades before taller peaks were discovered, Dhaulagiri rises like a giant white crystal hanging in the sky at about 26,795 feet, making it the 7th highest mountain in the world. What makes it truly frightening is not only its altitude, but also its south face, which climbs nearly 13,123 feet straight from the base and forms a massive wall of snow and ice for climbers. Unlike many mountains that expose grey rock, Dhaulagiri is almost completely covered in snow, so under sunlight, it shines like a gigantic crystal that appears both pure and intimidating. Humans did not reach the summit until 1960, and its brutality is reflected in the fact that roughly 1 out of every 5 climbers who reach the top never return. Pumori, Nepal/China. It is not just beautiful in a grand way, but looks like a living blade of ice rising straight into the sky, with graceful beauty hiding a cold and deadly nature. Near the summit, oxygen drops to about 40% of sea level, making every step feel as if the body is being slowly drained of strength from within. Its most frightening feature is the giant hanging blocks of ice clinging to steep walls, suspended like delayed bombs, waiting for the moment they finally collapse. That isolation, thin air, and constant threat hanging overhead have turned this peak into a symbol of mountain beauty that is mesmerizing but never merciful. Denali, United States. Rising like a lonely frozen ruler in the northern wilderness, Denali is the highest mountain in North America at about 20,308 feet. What makes it extraordinary is the way the mountain climbs almost suddenly from the lower land below, creating a vertical rise of about 18,045 feet and making its scale feel almost unreal. During climbing season, the mountain lies under endless polar daylight, when sunrise and sunset blend together for many hours and cover the icy slopes in a glowing pink-orange light that feels both beautiful and cold. The weather is so violent that it can change from sunshine to whiteout storm in only minutes, while northern winds can drive the wind chill down to about minus 117 degrees Fahrenheit. Yet beneath that beauty is a shattered glacier maze where thousands of deep crevasses hide under thin layers of snow that can collapse at any moment. Because of its isolation, brutal cold, and blizzards that can trap climbers in snow camps for many days, Denali is not only the roof of North America, but also one of the harshest survival tests in the world. Waitomo Glowworm Caves, New Zealand. Deep in the thick darkness underground, thousands of blue lights appear like a false galaxy, so beautiful that they hide the hunting system behind them. This glow does not come from flying fireflies, but from fungus gnat larvae clinging to the cave ceiling, using cold light to lure prey into sticky threads. This glowing kingdom sits inside limestone, formed from shells, coral, and fossilized sea life over 30 million years. When artificial light shines upward, the romantic starry sky becomes a cold hanging web, while the cave chamber, about 59 feet high, magnifies every water drop like a sound from the earth below. Waitomo glowworm caves remind people that what humans call an underground starry sky is actually nature's silent hunting ground. Pali Coast, United States. Welcome to an untouchable natural fortress where giant jagged cliffs about 3,937 feet high tear straight down into the edge of the ocean. Over a very long time, heavy rain and strong winds carved the mountain walls into deep folds with narrow valleys and huge waterfalls between them. The landscape stands out with red rock, green plants clinging to steep cliffs, and white waves crashing again and again against the shore. But behind that beauty is a very dangerous coast, where waves can rise to about 39 feet, and thick fog with sharp hidden rocks has caused many deadly shipwrecks. The only way to enter by land is to risk your life on a broken, narrow trail that is barely wide enough for one footprint. One wrong step, and you could fall hundreds of feet into the crashing abyss below with no second chance to come back. Dallol hydrothermal field, Ethiopia. Shining like a neon painting made from poison, the Dallol hydrothermal field is a forbidden landscape lying 427 feet below sea level, where normal limits of human survival are completely broken. Under heat rising above 122 degrees Fahrenheit, the bubbling pools here contain brutal acid with a negative pH and 43% salinity, strong enough to burn flesh and skin. The bright yellow and turquoise colors are not harmless beauty, but sulfur and iron deposits forming strange salt shapes across the dead ground. This young, hellish landscape has kept changing since the eruption in 1926, while magma as hot as 1,832 degrees Fahrenheit continues to burn beneath the thin crust. Between the hissing sounds of underground springs, this dazzling place stands as a fierce reminder that Earth still holds forbidden zones that seem made only for death. Naica Crystal Cave, Mexico. Buried 984 feet below the desert, this cave is a surreal, forbidden world that rejects life and hides the largest crystals on Earth. Formed over 500,000 years in mineral-rich water, these giant crystals grow in wild directions like a deadly glass web, reaching up to 39 feet long and weighing as much as 61 tons. Deep inside some crystals, scientists found ancient bacteria about 50,000 years old, carrying strange DNA never seen before. The magma below turns the cave into a brutal furnace, keeping the temperature near 136 degrees Fahrenheit, with humidity at 99%. Shishapangma, China. It does not appear like an ordinary mountain, but like a giant frozen fortress, where life and death stand only a breath apart. It is the 14th highest peak on Earth, and near the summit, the oxygen level drops to about 1/3 of sea level, turning every step into a real battle for the human body. Around it lie glaciers hundreds of feet thick that never truly rest, slowly moving and opening bottomless crevasses, ready to swallow anything without warning. Winds here can exceed 100 miles per hour, carving rock and ice into razor-sharp forms that make the whole mountain look like a monument shaped by storms. Its northern face rises as a wall of rock and ice thousands of feet high, while clouds often pour over the summit like a giant white waterfall falling from the sky. With snow famous for its terrible instability, and avalanches powerful enough to erase entire climbing teams, this peak stands as one of nature's most frightening displays of power. Zhangjiajie National Forest Park, China. Rising through the clouds like floating islands, more than 3,000 quartz pillars in Zhangjiajie create a breathtaking vertical maze of stone. In 1982, this became the first national forest park in China, and in 1992, it was recognized by UNESCO as a World Heritage Site. Some of these pillars rise to about 1,312 feet, with widths so narrow that in some places they are only a few arm spans across, yet they have remained standing for millions of years. On top of these sharp rock walls, rich green forest still grows, creating a beautiful contrast with the thick mist around them. The experience here is not for the faint-hearted, with an outdoor elevator about 1,070 feet high and a glass bridge hanging at about 984 feet above the ground. This unreal appearance later became the real-life model for the floating mountains in Avatar, leaving the whole world amazed. Okavango Delta, Botswana. In the heart of the burning Kalahari Desert, the Okavango Delta appears like a magical mirage, with endless stretches of emerald green spreading across the land. The life of this place is fed by a river that never reaches the sea, but instead spreads into countless clear channels that shine like crystal in the desert. Because of that, it gathers a huge concentration of wild animals, from massive elephant herds, lions, and leopards to thousands of hippos and crocodiles waiting in the water. Unlike the usual image of a muddy swamp, the water here is clear because it has passed through layers of sand and thick roots, forming channels bright as glass. Inside that water maze, thousands of small islands began as ancient termite mounds and slowly turned into thick green oases rising above the flood. This endless movement of water, sand, and life has made it one of the strangest landscapes in Africa, where nature seems to work against the rules people expect. Lake Natron, Tanzania. Rejecting peaceful beauty, Lake Natron is like a giant chemical trap where many unlucky animals can die and become preserved in the harsh water. Its extreme alkaline water is so strong that it can quickly damage the skin and eyes of creatures that enter it. Because the lake is usually less than 10 feet deep, the minerals in natron become highly concentrated, making the water even more dangerous. From above, the blood-red surface looks beautiful, like an endless mirror, but that strange view can confuse birds and lead them into danger. Yet this same water, which can heat up to 140 degrees Fahrenheit, also creates a natural defense that helps protect millions of flamingo nests from predators. Mount Washington, USA. It does not appear like a very tall mountain, but like a violent weather machine, hidden inside a calm-looking shape, where nature can change its mood in only a few minutes. For 76 years, it held the world record for the fastest wind ever measured on the surface of the Earth at 231 miles per hour, enough to turn the summit into a battlefield of air, ice, and fog. Although it is not especially high, the air pressure on top can make the human body feel as if it is standing at about 10,000 feet, making breathing and endurance far harder than most people expect. The fog here carries supercooled water droplets that freeze the moment they hit a surface, building long white ice feathers over rocks and structures. The whole mountain is a cold grey tundra, carved by ancient glaciers, leaving deep U-shaped valleys and stone covered with bright green lichen that makes the landscape look like another planet. Because the weather can jump from calm conditions to a snowstorm almost instantly, this peak has become one of the deadliest mountains in the United States. Masaya Volcano, Nicaragua. Hold your breath before the mouth of hell, where the fiery heartbeat of the planet sits only a few dangerous steps from your feet. With a crater about 2,000 feet wide and more than 1,000 feet deep, this volcano keeps releasing huge columns of acid smoke with a strong and corrosive sulfur smell. Its fury was so terrifying that in 1529, people built a giant cross on the rim to hold back the evil spirits they believed lived in the red fire. When darkness falls, the red glow from the lava lake lights up the sky like fire, creating a harsh contrast with the bare black rocks around it. Inside this giant furnace, green parrots flying through toxic smoke become a rare miracle of survival in a place that seems unable to hold life. Bimar Sinkhole, Oman. Breaking the dry and barren desert landscape, Bimar Sinkhole appears like a bright turquoise eye, and ancient people once believed it was a giant scar made by a meteorite striking the ground. This sinkhole has a near-perfect oval shape, about 164 feet wide and 65 feet deep, with steep limestone walls surrounding a calm, mirror-like pool. Even though it lies about 1,968 feet from the sea, the water below is linked to the ocean through underground caves, mixing fresh water and salt water into a strange, brackish pool. Under the burning sun, the water shines like a giant sapphire, creating a strong contrast against the dry, yellow land around it. Standing between danger and life, this natural wonder becomes a powerful symbol of balance in the Arabian desert ecosystem. Melisani Cave, Greece. Light at Melisani does not simply fall onto the lake, but turns the whole cave into a blue illusion where boats seem to fly beneath the earth. The name comes from the nymph Melisani, who is said to have thrown herself into the lake because of her unreturned love for the god Pan, leaving this place with a beauty that feels both sad and pure. Because the cave roof collapsed after an ancient earthquake, the midday sun can shine straight into the lake, about 98 feet deep, creating the illusion that boats are floating in the air. That strange clarity comes from seawater traveling underground for 14 days before appearing inside a world of stone formations about 20,000 years old. Sitting on small wooden boats in this half-real, half-dreamlike space, people feel as if Greek mythology is melting into the bright blue water. Mont Blanc, France, Italy. It is not only the highest peak in Western Europe, but also a colossal mass of ice with a boundary between land, sky, and two nations seems to dissolve into endless white. The summit remains buried all year under snow and ice dozens of feet thick, so even its true shape can change from year to year depending on the weight of that frozen cover. Around the main peak rise sharp towers of pink and grey granite, stabbing into the sky and creating a dramatic contrast between hard stone and the soft white snow. Above about 13,000 feet, winds can reach nearly 93 miles per hour, and temperatures often fall below -40 degrees Fahrenheit, making this an intensely hostile world for any living thing. Beneath that beauty lie deep blue glacier crevasses, often hidden under thin snow, like deadly traps waiting beneath the feet of climbers. Although it is not the tallest mountain on Earth, it is still infamous for causing many deaths each year because the white sea of clouds below can make people forget they are standing in front of a killing machine made of ice. Mount Nyiragongo, Democratic Republic of the Congo. Welcome to the Kingdom of Demons, a place that holds the largest and most violent permanent boiling lava lake on Earth. At the center of a crater, about 2,000 feet deep, a red sea of magma stays above 2,000 degrees Fahrenheit, hot enough to melt and evaporate many materials in moments. Unlike normal lava, the fire here is as fluid as water and can race down the mountain at up to 60 miles per hour, leaving almost no living thing enough time to escape. In air thick with sulfur, the crater, about 1 mile wide, looks like a giant crack in the earth and throws a red glow into the dark night sky. Standing before this abyss with no clear escape, people feel unbelievably small before the raw, destructive power of the haunting magma streams below. Kawah Ijen, Indonesia. Shaped like a gate opening from the human world into a glowing hell, Kawah Ijen is a volcano famous for its deadly acid lake, which stretches about 3,281 feet wide and is strong enough to burn flesh. When night comes, the crater turns into a science fiction scene as blue fire burns across the darkness, caused by sulfur gas igniting at about 1,112 degrees Fahrenheit. Under bright daylight, the clear turquoise water looks beautiful, but it hides a huge body of acid that can quietly destroy everything flowing downstream. This highly corrosive place is so extreme that even modern mining machines struggle to work here, showing that nature still has places humans cannot fully control. Yet because of poverty, many local workers still risk their lives in the toxic gas every day, carrying out a harsh survival job that has passed from one generation to the next. Yellowstone National Park, United States. Founded in 1872, Yellowstone was the first national park in the world, and it also holds more than half of the planet's hot water areas. The frightening truth is that the whole place lies above a giant volcanic mass about 50 miles long, so the ground here has never truly been calm. Between deep canyons and wide pine forests, the pools shine in green, yellow, orange, and red, making the land feel like another world. But those colors come from countless tiny living things, surviving in toxic water where most other life cannot live. Even the huge bison may look slow, yet they can suddenly rush forward very fast. So almost every year, some visitors are attacked because they wrongly think these animals are gentle. And the coldest truth is that the hot pools and smoking mud here have killed or badly burned more visitors than all wild animals combined. Shiprock, United States. In the middle of flat desert land, Shiprock suddenly rises like a giant dark tower about 1,581 feet high, and it is the hard center left from a volcano that died about 30 million years ago. From above, people can see long walls of rock spreading from its base, looking like the backbone of a strange creature lying in the dry, burning land. In the desert heat that makes the air shake, this dark mass from far away looks like a huge sailing ship moving across a red sea of sand. But for native people, it is not lifeless stone, but a sacred bird that carried their ancestors across the barren land and then turned to rock to protect them. That is why, since the 1970s, native people have completely banned climbing this rock after many deadly accidents, and they see it as punishment for disrespecting sacred land. All of this creates a powerful view where the hard blue sky, the cracked yellow desert, and the cold black rock stand against each other like a mark from an ancient world. Mount Yasur, Vanuatu. It burns in the dark like the lighthouse of the Pacific, with magma fireworks that have continued almost non-stop for more than 800 years. Although this fierce volcano is only about 1,184 feet high, its crater is about 1,300 feet wide, where gas explosions keep throwing molten rocks hundreds of feet into the air. Standing near the rim, you can feel shock waves shaking your chest, while cannon-like blasts echo from deep inside the earth. Around the volcano lies a dark, grey ash desert, bare like the surface of the moon, creating a strong contrast with the green forest in the distance. This near-death experience becomes even stranger because visitors can send postcards from what is known as the world's most dangerous mailbox, placed right near the boiling crater. Bosque de Piedras de Pampachiri, Peru. At more than 13,000 feet above sea level, this place looks like a giant stone army standing still in the cold and empty land of the Andes. This stone forest, covering about 148 acres, is the result of violent eruptions about 4 million years ago, leaving tens of thousands of rocks as high as about 49 feet. From far away, they look like giant rocks weighing thousands of tons rising across the plateau, but they are actually quite light because they are filled with countless tiny holes inside. Because of that, people carved into the rocks to survive the cold. And when fires burn, smoke rises from the tops and makes the whole field seem alive. So even though many people call it the Smurf Village, that gentle name cannot hide the hard life of the local people. Yet on that same cold, dry land, the night sky is so clear that people can see the bright core of the Milky Way with their own eyes. Molnár János Cave, Hungary. Beneath the beautiful capital of Hungary lies a magical underground world filled with warm water, where total silence stands in sharp contrast to the busy life above. With a tunnel network about 5 miles long and more than 328 feet deep, Molnár János is now the largest thermal cave system in Europe still being explored. This water maze keeps changing shape, from huge underground chambers as large as airplane hangars to narrow cracks barely wide enough for divers to squeeze through. This dangerous structure has turned the place into a risky, forbidden zone, where only the world's most skilled technical divers are allowed to enter. In this environment, with no direct escape route, the clear beauty of the water becomes a perfect trap, where the line between life and death may be only one small mistake away. Ushba, Georgia. Tearing through the Caucasus sky like a pair of demonic horns, Ushba stands about 15,453 feet high, and although it is not among the tallest mountains in the world, it remains one of the most feared symbols in mountaineering. Unlike peaks with a single summit, Ushba is split into a southern and northern top connected by a ridge as thin as a blade, with deep abyss on both sides. In ancient language, its name is often understood to mean the Mountain of Misfortune, because this place seems to live with storms, violent winds, and extreme weather changes. The whole mountain is made of raw red and black granite, hard but dangerously slick, and its west face is so smooth that climbers call it the mirror because there is barely space for half a foot. Standing apart from the main mountain line, this massif also acts like a giant lightning rod, often drawing bolts that rip across the sky and create surreal displays of light. With no fixed camps, no pre-installed ropes, and almost no sign of commercialization, Ushpa has kept its brutal wilderness, making every attempt to approach it feel like entering a challenge against raw nature itself. Komodo Island, Indonesia. Like a piece of prehistoric earth left in the sea, this place has dry, sharp hills that look like the back of a giant monster lying still. This whole island, covering about 151 square miles, is home to more than 2,000 Komodo dragons, the largest lizards left on Earth. Komodo dragons do not kill prey with bacteria as many people once believed, but with venom that can quickly lower blood pressure and stop blood from clotting. The landscape feels even more unreal because of its bright pink beach beside clear emerald turquoise seawater. Lying between the Indian Ocean and the Pacific Ocean, the waters around the island are rich in nutrients, creating bright coral reefs and one of the richest marine ecosystems in the world. The island was recognized by UNESCO as a World Heritage Site in 1991, helping protect the largest lizard on Earth from disappearing because of human actions. Boiling Lake, Dominica. Deep inside the tropical rainforest, it is not calm like a normal lake, but keeps boiling violently like a giant pressure cooker of the earth. This is the second largest hot lake in the world, about 200 feet wide, and it is actually a vent in the Earth's crust, heated non-stop by magma below. In the center, the hot water sits in a basin more than 195 feet deep, constantly creating thick white steam that blocks the view and carries a strong sulfur smell. Even the edge of the lake stays between 180 and 197 degrees Fahrenheit, while the surrounding rocks are stained by minerals into bright but threatening colors. After a difficult 8-hour hike, people do not just see a strange lake, but also feel the burning breath of geothermal heat boiling right beneath their feet. Erta Ale, Ethiopia. In one of the harshest lowlands of Ethiopia, it rises like a gate leading straight into the heart of the earth, with a permanent lava lake that has kept boiling for more than a century. This shield volcano stands about 2,011 feet high and reaches a destructive heat of about 2,012 degrees Fahrenheit, where bright red magma keeps crashing and swallowing black rock plates before the eyes of explorers. Around the crater lies a jagged black basalt desert, creating a bare and threatening landscape that feels like the surface of another planet. When night falls, the red glow from below becomes so strong that the burning sky can be seen clearly from more than 19 miles away. Only after enduring the burning heat and the heavy smell of sulfur to stand near the rim can people truly feel how small they are before the raw and frightening power of nature. Mount Everest, Nepal/China. Nowhere on Earth pushes human beings closer to the sky than Everest, a peak about 29,032 feet high that has become the ultimate symbol of ambition, glory, and the limits of survival. Even as the roof of the planet, this mountain is still rising by about 0.2 inches each year, because tectonic plates continue to collide and force it upward. What makes it even stranger is that the summit is built from sedimentary limestone filled with ancient marine fossils, proving that the highest place on Earth once lay under the sea about 450 million years ago. At that altitude, the air is so thin that every step feels like running a marathon while breathing through a straw, and a sudden storm or gust of wind can take a life within minutes. Humans did not truly stand on the summit until 1953, yet the price has always been severe, with more than 300 bodies still lying on the slopes like cold markers of ambition. Beside all that glory is a quieter disaster, because about 50 tons of trash, including abandoned oxygen bottles, broken tents, and human waste, have turned Everest into a place of pollution at extreme altitude. Fitz Roy, Argentina/Chile. The uncrowned king of Patagonia rises with sharp stone peaks, like shark teeth tearing proudly through the sky. Though it stands only about 11,171 feet high, far lower than Everest, this mountain still frightens climbers more because of its steep, smooth granite walls and extreme weather, and in some years, no one reaches the summit. The whole massif is made of granite spires as sharp as shark teeth, stabbing straight upward, with continuous vertical walls stretching more than 3,937 feet, and creating an overwhelming presence for anyone below. At sunrise, the rock faces reflect the sunlight and burn in deep red, standing in fierce contrast to white snow and cold blue water, making Fitz Roy both breathtakingly beautiful and deeply challenging. From cracks high in the rock, meltwater from eternal ice falls like the tears of a giant, gathering into stunning turquoise lakes below the mountain. Local people called it Chowten, meaning the smoking mountain, because the summit is often wrapped in white cloud bands that look like smoke rising from a volcano. Banff National Park, Canada. Set in the Rocky Mountains, Banff was founded in 1885 and became Canada's oldest protected park, with a beauty so bright that many people think it looks edited. Its most striking feature is the turquoise lakes, because very fine rock dust in the water makes the light appear unusually bright. From there, the whole area appears with bright white snow, cold grey cliffs, and dark green conifer forests stretching across the mountain slopes. But few people know it began with greed, when 3 workers once tried to take the hot springs for their own profit. That forced the government to step in quickly, take back control, and turn this land into national property. Even so, behind the beauty remains a heavy memory, because thousands of prisoners were once held here and forced to work through freezing winters. Drakensberg Mountains, South Africa, and Lesotho, Rising like a giant wall about 621 miles long, this place is known as the Roof of Southern Africa, with sheer cliffs climbing higher than 11,155 feet. That unbroken steepness creates waterfalls that plunge from astonishing heights, giving the whole landscape a beauty that feels both grand and fierce. Most striking of all is the second tallest waterfall on Earth, falling from about 3,281 feet, yet often torn apart by wind into mist, hanging in the air before it reaches the bottom. When fog rolls up and hides the lower slopes, the sharp peaks appear like a structure floating in space, creating a view that feels mysterious and almost unreal. That wild beauty becomes even more unusual because summer brings fields of bright flowers, while winter covers the high peaks in white snow, a very rare sight in Africa. Deep inside its caves are more than 35,000 ancient rock paintings, making this place not only a natural wonder, but also one of humanity's great cultural treasures. Salar de Uyuni, Bolivia. Breaking every normal idea of a desert, Salar de Uyuni is a vast white salt plain left behind by a giant lake that dried up about 40,000 years ago. Sitting about 12,000 feet above sea level, this place covers around 4,000 square miles and is so flat that NASA has used it to help calibrate satellites. Beneath the hard salt crust lies one of the world's greatest lithium treasures, holding about 70% of the planet's known reserves. In the rainy season, a thin layer of water turns the surface into a giant mirror, making the sky and the ground seem to become one. In the dry season, the salt crust breaks into endless, sharp polygons, creating a cold and powerful landscape that feels larger than human imagination. Teahupo'o, French Polynesia. It is called Wall of Skulls because the waves here are not only tall, but also very thick, very heavy, and crash onto the sea like a giant block of concrete. This violence happens because the seafloor suddenly rises from about 300 feet deep to near the surface, squeezing the full power of the ocean into a very short distance. When that energy breaks free, the front part of the falling wave can be about 20 feet thick and move at around 30 miles per hour, creating an impact strong enough to break even professional surfboards. The most dangerous moment comes when the wave folds over the coral reef because the water can drop below 20 inches, leaving surfers only one handspan above sharp coral edges. That is why, in the wild scenery of Tahiti, rescue jet ski teams must always be ready, because they may be the only chance of survival for anyone caught in one of the most dangerous waves on Earth. Sidoarjo mud flow, Indonesia. Instead of erupting like a normal volcano, it keeps releasing hot grey mud that slowly swallows the land around it. Since 2006, this mudflow has almost never stopped, and at its peak, it released enough mud each day to fill 50 Olympic swimming pools. That destructive force buried 12 villages, leaving homes, schools, and many buildings covered under mud up to 131 feet thick. Across more than 1,729 acres, steam and gas still rise from mud near 212 degrees Fahrenheit, and in the middle of that muddy sea, human statues covered in mud stand still like ghosts, reminding people of loss and pain. To stop the mud from spreading farther, people had to build embankments about 33 to 49 feet high, creating a strange border between normal life and a still boiling sea of mud, where humans seem very small before the anger rising from the earth. Matterhorn, Switzerland/Italy. Matterhorn rises like a giant rock pyramid with an almost perfectly symmetrical shape, standing about 14,692 feet high on the border of Switzerland and Italy, and it has become one of the most iconic and recognizable mountains in the world. Unlike many peaks hidden inside larger mountain groups, it stands apart from the surrounding landscape, which makes it look even taller, lonelier, and more overwhelming than its true height suggests. The mountain is divided into 4 steep faces that point almost exactly toward the 4 main compass directions. And because the slopes are so steep, snow can barely hold on, leaving dark grey rock rising above the white glaciers below. Ancient glaciers carved this mountain from four sides to create its famous glacial horn shape, while the summit and lower part of the mountain belong to different tectonic plates from two continents. At sunset, when the final light turns the summit orange-red like a giant torch above a sea of cloud, Matterhorn appears both magnificent and like a cold warning to humanity. That seductive beauty also hides a bloody history, because the first ascent in 1865 ended in tragedy, and since then, more than 500 people have died on its slopes. Son Dung Cave, Vietnam. It is not like an ordinary cave, but more like a giant underground world hidden beneath the ground, where real clouds can drift slowly through the darkness. This space has a volume of about 1,360,000,000 cubic feet and a rock vault up to 492 feet wide, with its largest chamber big enough for a Boeing 747 to fly through without hitting the rock walls. Thanks to giant skylights bringing sunlight deep inside, a tropical forest has grown in the cave, with trees about 98 feet tall and stalagmites more than 230 feet high. Its huge size, isolation, and difficult access are why fewer people have reached the deepest core of this wonder than have climbed Mount Everest. To reach that surreal world, people must pass through a harsh journey, starting with a rope descent into an abyss about 262 feet deep before entering the cave. Eiger, Switzerland. Known as the Butcher of the Alps, this mountain stands about 13,015 feet high and inspires both fascination and fear the moment people see it. Its fame is tied to the North Face, a wall rising more than 5,906 feet, so deadly that it earned the name Murder Wall after a long history of climbing disasters in the last century. What makes it even more frightening is that this face curves slightly inward like a giant trap, holding wind, cloud, and snowstorms in place, so the weather can turn savage even when the surrounding area still looks calm. Fragile rock and melting ice high above also make rockfall common here, and stones dropping freely from great height send thunder-like echoes across the mountain. Near the top, a permanent ice field clings to the wall like a giant spider, forming one of the most feared sections on the entire mountain. Strangely, a railway tunnel more than 4 miles long cuts through this brutal mountain core, an engineering wonder that lets people look out at the world through windows opened in the mountain itself. Congo Rainforest, Democratic Republic of the Congo. At the heart of Africa, this green lung covering about 500 million acres holds part of the planet's breath as the second largest rainforest in the world. Ancient trees rising to about 200 feet form such a dense roof that rain can take as long as 10 minutes to reach the ground. Flowing through its core is the Congo River, the deepest river on Earth, with depths beyond about 720 feet and violent power hidden underwater that can seem calm. Beneath the wet forest floor lies peatland, storing about 30 billion tons of carbon, a huge amount equal to around 3 years of all human emissions. This is the only homeland of the bonobo and also an important refuge for giant gorillas among the mineral-rich forest swamps. With more than 250 ethnic groups living here, it forms a deeply complex cultural map where people have learned to adapt to nature for thousands of years. Saltstraumen, Norway. Saltstraumen is not a calm blue sea, but a violent tidal channel where the ocean twists and crashes like a giant living monster. Every 6 hours, about 14 billion cubic feet of seawater are forced through a narrow gap at speeds up to 25 miles per hour, creating a water level difference of about 3 feet. The powerful currents tear the surface into huge whirlpools about 16 feet deep and 33 feet wide, strong enough to pull in very large objects. Beneath that wild surface, the rushing water supports a rich marine ecosystem, and this area once recorded a giant fish weighing about 50 pounds. Today, this fierce natural wonder attracts visitors who come close by boat to witness the thin line between beauty, danger, and raw power. Tsingy de Bemaraha National Park, Madagascar. Appearing like a giant stone maze covering nearly 600 square miles, this place is filled with countless sharp spikes rising straight into the sky and making the ground look like a dangerous natural trap. Even its name feels like a warning, because in the local language, Tsingy means a place where people cannot walk barefoot. This land holds two extreme worlds, with the peaks exposed to heat of about 104 degrees Fahrenheit, while the narrow cracks about 164 feet below become dark, wet, and cool like a hidden forest. Even under such harsh conditions, it remains a safe haven for lemurs that can leap quickly across the sharp stone points with almost no injury. In the past, this thorn-like maze of stone served as a natural fortress that protected local people from slave hunters. Today, anyone who wants to go deep into this landscape must climb near vertical rock walls with safety gear or hold their breath while crossing thin rope bridges hanging above deep chasms. Mount Logan, Canada. It does not appear like a single mountain, but like an immense frozen kingdom where nature overwhelms humans not only by height, but by a scale that feels almost impossible to believe. This massif has the largest base circumference of any non-volcanic mountain on Earth, so enormous that it feels as if dozens of other great peaks could disappear inside it. On the summit, temperatures have fallen to minus 108 degrees Fahrenheit, colder than the average temperature on Mars, cold enough to make plastic brittle and even metal crack under stress. When huge blocks of ice can collapse at any moment, like rolling thunder beneath a sky so dark blue it nearly turns black, this place becomes one of the most terrifying symbols of frozen power on Earth. Hoh Xil, China. With an average elevation of more than 14,800 feet, this is one of the highest and widest wild regions in the world, with almost no sign of human life because the conditions are too harsh. The landscape stretches endlessly, with towering high plains surrounded by mountain ranges covered in bright white snow all year. Although it looks like a dry desert, Hoh Xil has the highest density of lakes in China, with thousands of large and small lakes formed by melting ice. But Hoh Xil is special not only for its landscape, because it is also the most important protected home of the Tibetan antelope, an animal once hunted close to extinction only for its wool. Their wool is so fine that a large shawl can pass through a ring, but making one such shawl requires the skins of about 3 to 5 animals. For that reason, the safest way to cross this land is by train with pumped oxygen, because stepping outside onto the plateau could become a death sentence for many people. Glowworm National Park is a vast landscape in central Turkey, known worldwide for its unusually dense concentration of naturally deformed rock formations. The area is recognized as a World Heritage Site due to the rare coexistence of volcanic geology and long-term human settlement within the same environment. The dominant rock layer is compressed volcanic ash, softer than typical stone, yet stable enough to endure over very long periods. Geologists estimate that erosion mainly occurred over roughly 8 to 10 million years through continuous exposure to wind and water. Living directly inside the rock helped inhabitants reduce climate exposure and limit external environmental threats. The entire region is classified as selectively eroded volcanic terrain, a landform rarely preserved at such a large scale. Serengeti, Tanzania, and Kenya. Spreading across nearly 12,000 square miles, this land appears like an endless sea of grass and a stage of survival where the laws of nature are shown in their rawest form. Each year, it witnesses a great wonder, as more than 1.5 million wildebeest and hundreds of thousands of zebras move in an almost endless loop in search of food. It is also one of the fiercest battlefields on Earth, with more than 3,000 lions and 1,000 leopards turning every part of the land into a never-ending struggle to stay alive. The plain changes with the rhythm of life, from bright green and full of energy in the rainy season to a dry yellow ocean when the dry season arrives. Almost unchanged for about 1 million years, the ecosystem and landscape you see today still carry the look of a prehistoric world left almost untouched. Spending a night camping here means getting used to the ground shaking softly from the roar of lions echoing through the dark from far away. Bantha Brak, Pakistan. Rising into the clouds with giant stone towers, sharpened like the claws of a monster, this ogre stands about 23,901 feet high and is more brutal than many record-breaking peaks because of its steep granite structure. Instead of having a familiar summit shape, the mountain is built from enormous granite towers with smooth surfaces that give climbers almost no resting ground and no gentle slopes to breathe easily on. Its extreme danger lies in razor-sharp rock walls that can cut through strong ropes under the force of violent wind, creating a deadly risk for anyone hanging above open space. This massive structure also creates its own harsh local climate, repeatedly striking challenges with blinding snowstorms that arrive without warning and can last for many days. During the first ascent, in 1977, one climber shattered both legs near the top and had to crawl for 8 days through a snowstorm to survive, while his partner also suffered severe injuries and pneumonia. Even after that first success, more than 20 elite expeditions were still thrown back by the mountain, and it took exactly 24 years before a second person finally reached that terrifying summit. Daha Blue Hole, Egypt. Do not let the clear blue water fool you, because this place is known as the Diver's Cemetery, with a vertical sinkhole dropping deep in the Red Sea. Formed by the collapse of ancient limestone caves, this natural trap falls straight down about 427 feet, where the water pressure is 13 times stronger than at the surface. The most dangerous point lies about 171 feet deep, where an 85-foot rock arch opens to the ocean and can make divers lose direction because of nitrogen narcosis. The contrast between the bright coral reefs above and the memorial plaques on the rocks has become a cold warning about more than 200 lives lost in the abyss. Exploring this wonder is not just a dive into the ocean, but also a mental battle on the thin line between hypnotic beauty and silent death. Zhangjiajie, China. It appears like a giant crack tearing open the ground, leading down into a sinkhole about 2,172 feet deep, where sunlight can hardly reach the very bottom. This overwhelming scale is enclosed by steep rock walls, forming a dangerous two-level double sinkhole with a volume equal to 48,000 Olympic swimming pools. This long isolation has nurtured a unique ancient forest ecosystem where more than 1,200 plant species quietly grow at the wet bottom of the abyss. Beneath the mist created by falling waterfalls is an underground river about 5 miles long, slowly wearing down the limestone and helping carve this giant wonder. Crossing 2,800 steep steps is the price of reaching this 128,000-year-old forgotten world, where humans become tiny before the greatness of the earth. Dhaulagiri Canyon, Iceland. Few people know that this wonder was once hidden under a powerful glacial river for thousands of years, until a dam was built and suddenly revealed its secret beauty. When the water dropped, it exposed a vast maze of basalt columns rising up to about 100 feet high, forming one of the most unique landscapes in Iceland. What makes it even more unusual is that these columns are not random, but shaped into clear hexagons that fit tightly together like a wall built with perfect precision. Below these stone walls, a bright turquoise river flows through, creating a sharp contrast with the dark grey rock that looks almost unreal. Yet this beauty never stays the same, because during heavy rain or strong ice melt, the water turns grey and violent, rushing hard against the base of the columns. This constant change between calm and power makes it one of the most striking places where nature creates beauty and breaks it again at any moment. Lysefjord, Norway. Lysefjord feels like a bright cut reaching into Norway, where still water lies trapped between cliffs so steep they almost take your breath away. Its name means light fjord, coming from the pale grey granite walls that reflect into the deep, mirror-like water below. The fjord stretches for about 26 miles and was carved by giant glaciers over millions of years, then shaped clearly after the Ice Age around 10,000 years ago. On both sides, cliffs rise nearly 3,281 feet straight above the water, forming a massive stone corridor that feels both majestic and dangerous. It is also famous for a wooden stairway, with 4,444 steps along an old pipeline route, and 4 huge rocks wedged between mountain cracks as if they are defying gravity. Between calm water, towering walls, and unpredictable winds, this place is not only a glacial landscape, but also a sanctuary for climbing, base jumping, and those who want to touch the edge of fear. Jacob's Well, USA. In crystal clear water, it opens like a bottomless black eye, both beautifully fascinating and deeply chilling. The opening is almost perfectly round, about 13 feet wide, creating a sudden change from emerald green to dark blue, as if the bottom has been carved open before your eyes. From that opening, the water leads down into an underground limestone cave system, where the vertical depth of about 33 feet is only the first part of cave levels more than 141 feet deep. The deeper you go, the more dangerous the clear beauty becomes, because narrow passages, mud traps, and loose sediment can make divers completely lose direction. Because of this, Jacob's Well is called one of the deadliest diving spots, where at least 8 to 9 divers have died while trying to explore the deepest cave levels. Cerro Torre, Argentina/Chile. Known as the Steel Needle of Patagonia, Cerro Torre rises to about 10,262 feet and remains one of the most haunting mountains on Earth, as well as a dream that feels almost impossible for climbers. The entire mountain is a thin granite tower, standing at nearly 90 degrees on every side, turning any ascent into an extreme test of rock climbing, ice climbing, and endurance against savage wind. Its summit is not a stable rock surface, but a mass of giant, soft ice formed from frozen moisture, creating white ice mushrooms that rise into the sky and make every anchor placement feel like a deadly gamble. Its harshness is also shown by the fact that climbers often cannot even pitch tents and must dig shelters for the night inside those hanging soft ice mushrooms near the top. Only in 1974 did humans truly stand on the summit tower, confirming Cerro Torre as one of the hardest mountains on Earth to conquer. Manaslu, Nepal. It does not appear like an ordinary snowy mountain, but like a frozen gate where human life begins to wear away minute by minute in the death zone. As the 8th highest peak on Earth, it is famous for a deeply deceptive summit structure, and many climbers have come close to victory only to turn back from the narrow ice ridge leading to the true top. Above about 26,000 feet, the air becomes so thin that the body starts to break down from lack of oxygen, while helicopter rescue near the summit is almost hopeless because rotor blades cannot generate enough lift. From a distance, its twin sharp summits look like giant icy fangs biting into the sky, giving the whole mountain a presence that feels sacred, violent, and deeply threatening. When a massive block of ice once collapsed in the night and wiped out an entire camp without warning, this peak became a brutal symbol of how fragile human life is in the Himalayas. Darvaza Gas Crater, Turkmenistan. Burning in the middle of the silent desert, this giant crater is like a roaring mouth of fire, born from a drilling mistake in 1971 that turned into one of the most terrifying flames on Earth. With a width of 230 feet and a depth of 98 feet, it keeps releasing methane gas and reaches temperatures of about 1,832 degrees Fahrenheit, hot enough to melt pure aluminum. Beneath the shaking heat and the loud roar of the gas, tiny extremophile bacteria still survive on the blazing surface. For more than 50 years, the huge pressure below the ground has made human efforts to close or fill the crater completely useless. This burning landscape is both a warning and a wonder, showing how a dangerous environmental disaster can strangely become a surreal and haunting masterpiece. Maras Salt Mines, Peru. Hanging on the slopes of the Andes at more than 11,000 feet above sea level, this huge, handmade salt system appears like an ancient masterpiece. Built from about 200 to 700 AD, it has lasted strongly through many centuries. Its wonder begins with a small crack that brings salty water from inside the mountain, then carries it into thousands of pools where it dries under the strong sun. With more than 3,000 pools stacked together, the whole place looks like a shining white dragon-scale carpet glowing like silver in a red-brown valley. Here, rare pink salt is still collected fully by hand, using a method that has stayed almost unchanged for more than 500 years. To protect this special resource, visitors have been completely banned from stepping into the salt pools since 2019 in order to preserve the heritage. Pumori, Peru. From above, this masterpiece in the Andes looks exactly like a giant fingerprint pressed into the earth. In fact, this hole, about 98 feet deep, was a clever climate machine, creating a temperature difference of about 27 degrees Fahrenheit to copy around 20 different weather zones. Ancient people also brought soil here from many distant regions, turning the terraces into a testing ground where crops slowly learned to survive harsh conditions. With stone walls about 7 feet high that could withstand earthquakes and a hidden drainage system below, this great funnel has never flooded even in the worst rainy season. Right here, the Inca helped develop about 3,000 kinds of potatoes, opening the way for a food source that later saved millions of lives. Today, visitors are completely forbidden from stepping down into the bottom, forcing modern people to stop at the rim and respect the great intelligence of their ancestors. Channeled scablands, United States. Looking like the scar left by a giant disaster, the channeled scablands are a torn basalt landscape that reveals the path of the most terrifying megaflood in North America. That flood rushed through at speeds up to 80 miles per hour, ripping away 200 feet of fertile soil and exposing the hard rock below. Huge whirlpools filled with giant stones worked like natural drills, carving the ground into deep and strangely smooth potholes. One of the most haunting sights is a dry horseshoe-shaped cliff about 4 miles wide and 400 feet high, which was once a giant waterfall. Covered with gravel ripples as high as 30 feet, this harsh land still refuses to soften, preserving the wild and barren mark of that ancient flood.